The Center for Disease Controls has just released its list of the dirtiest cruise ships in America once again. And don't you know it? I just took a cruise on the dirtiest one. So did my time on board the MSC Magnifica leave me sickly and feeling kind of icky? I'm going to tell you all about it. Let's roll the intro. Hey, welcome to the Midships channel. It's your Captain Corey. Now, one of the best forms of public service that I think most local governments do is keeping eating and drinking establishments accountable. Of course, I'm talking about the health inspector coming and checking around. And believe it or not, cruise ships have a similar system in place to that of land. However, this system is run by a large form of government, that being the federal government, or more specifically, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Now, of course, all of you know them as the CDC. They run a program called the Vessel Sanitation Program, and it's where they go out and inspect cruise ships and make sure they're being honest and safe and clean. And wouldn't you know it, the CDC just dropped the new list of cruise ships for 2024, all of the health and sanitation scores. And the cruise ship that I was just on like 2 weeks ago, the MSC Magnifica, happens to be the lowest scoring cruise ship in the country right now, alongside the likes of the Carnival Breeze and the Caribbean Princess. As a matter of fact, here's the bottom of the list. And you'll note there are some other ships here, but they're not what I would consider a mega cruise ship. It's not the kind of vessel we would talk about here on the Midships channel. So we'll just ignore them, but they're there if you want to know about it. All right. So these scores in the VSP, the Vessel Sanitation Program, they're ranked out of 100%. Think of it like your high school or college grade point average. And so an 86 is the absolute minimum floor that a cruise ship can achieve to pass, and not to be an immediate failure deemed needing a follow-up visit in the near-term future. Every large cruise ship in the country, fortunately, on this go-around has passed, which is really good news. And in other words, that means that C's really do get degrees, which is something I've said from time to time throughout life. But it really should be every cruise line's goal to not score an 86. It should be their goal to get nearer to a 100% on their inspection scores. So what about the Magnifica? Based on my personal experiences just having disembarked the ship, was it clean? Was I safe? What are my thoughts? Let's get into it. Now, I'm going to tell you right away, my experience on the Magnifica, it was a heck of a lot different than what I'm about to tell you in the CDC report. But I'll cut to the chase. I did not get sick, and I didn't feel at any point in time that there were massive underlying problems going on board the ship. Nothing stuck out to me. I'm a former restaurant manager, so I've got an eye for this kind of stuff. And it's not like there was just gross, gunky corners or disgusting silverware being given to me. Everything seemed to be neat and tidy like it should be. With that said, I noticed one thing that had my used to work at restaurant senses getting a little bit weird, and that was at one of the main bars in the heart of the ship. They had this specialty gin that they were hawking. They were selling it there, and they had turned it into a display right out there on the bar where people were sitting. So you would sit there and you could literally reach out, pick up the bottles, look at them, and touch them, which would be fine if they were just decorative bottles. But these were the gin bottles that the bartenders were actively serving from when people ordered this gin. And that to me just doesn't sit right, because with anybody having access to these bottles, let's start with the easy, just dirty hands touching a bottle. That's not okay. But then you get into the seriously dark and twisted. Somebody could drop something into those bottles that doesn't belong there, with the intent of, I don't know, taking somebody back to their cabin. It just was not a good, healthy, safe way to do it. That was the biggest thing I saw on board the Magnifica. So I guess what I'm telling you is it was pretty good. Now, the CDC's report is telling me some other things that don't sound as good as what I just told you. And one of the biggest glaring issues that I saw on the report was with some of the dishwashing equipment on the ship. There were multiple violations, 5 or 6 that I counted, where there was reportedly cross-contamination between the clean and the dirty side of their dishwashing systems. So we're talking about, you have just washed dishes that are going through the sanitary rinse, but during that rinse, they're actually getting squirted with disgusting rinse water when they're supposed to be getting cleaned off. And in addition to that problem of cross-contamination, they also had a few temperature problems with the water not getting hot enough to sanitize surfaces on plates, glasses, and silverware. So these are the type of problems that the CDC found on the Magnifica. Now, another thing that stuck out to me in this report was actually the drinking water on the ship on board. It received several failure notices, which were kind of gross. Some were just sort of and some were, okay, we got to look into this. The crew on board were found to have not been keeping up with their water disinfection and cleaning logs, to the point where crew members didn't actually know if they had sanitized the water for the day in the system because paperwork wasn't kept and people weren't really paying that close of attention, it doesn't sound like. Next on the list was improperly stored fish in the freezer. Apparently it was just laying there, not wrapped up or anything, just sitting out on a chunk of ice in the freezer. I don't know what the story is behind that, but I don't keep fish wide open on ice in my freezer, so I don't want my cruise ship to do that either. Also, we had temperature problems with some cheese that was 5 to 10 degrees above safe storage temperatures. And a lot of the freezers on board were noted to have excess condensation, which usually comes from temperature fluctuation. So you don't want that kind of thing noted in reports. Now, here's the thing with these inspection reports. A lot of the derogatory marks that are taken off of a score are for silly things, like something's out of order. For instance, they took points away on the Magnifica because the lights at one of the coffee stations were not bright enough. Wait, hang on.
The lights at this coffee station are only 147 lux when they're supposed to be 220.
Yes, I'm a nerd. I can do that. So right away, in my mind, the score goes up a point for Magnifica because I don't care that the lights were too dim in the coffee bar. What I do care about is the fact that the housekeeping manager and a large number of crew members in that department were unsure about how to respond to an outbreak on board the ship. Folks, we're 4 years removed from a complete shutdown of the cruise industry because of outbreaks that occurred on ships. I want to hear from y'all in the comments down below. Have you ever gotten sick on a cruise ship? Let me know about it. Don't get into the details, but warn your fellow Midships members. Now, as far as the rest of the inspection report here, it's the usual things. There's a couple of flies that got into inside spaces, which, okay, it's a massive cruise ship. There's going to be some flies or some bees or something that gets inside from time to time. There's a bug or two here and there, probably in my house and probably in your house right now. So I'm going to forgive a few flies, 3 flies on the MSC Magnifica. It sounds like overall MSC responded pretty well to this report. From my experience, they are running a very tight ship. It seemed exceedingly clean to me. As a matter of fact, I spoke to a few folks on board the Magnifica who had never cruised with MSC before. It was their first time and they had heard the horror stories, and they were surprised to find out how good and clean and upscale of an experience that they were having on board a old, small MSC cruise ship. As a matter of fact, I have a full video coming out about my experience on the Magnifica. If you're interested in that, I would invite you to subscribe to the channel. It'll be out in the next couple of days. I'm still polishing that up. In the meantime, I think you should stick around and watch this video where I take a cruise with another cruise line who is notorious for failing CDC inspections. We'll see you there.